This April, Momentum Mental Health Board Chairman Chris Black, along with a group of around about 19 others, are going to be taking on the Everest Base Camp Challenge. Now, the climb will be a test of endurance for those who take part, but of course, there is so much more to it than that. It's an epic adventure. But the trek is also about raising awareness of the valuable mental health and wellbeing services that Momentum Mental Health delivers in the Toowoomba and Warwick regions. Of course, it's about money too. $100,000, in fact. That's how much those doing the trek are aiming to raise. One of the group of 20 is Megan O'Hara Sullivan. Now, you probably know Megan as a Toowoomba councillor, or you might know of her in her other incarnation as an optometrist in the region. But at the moment, she's getting ready for a trip that will most definitely guarantee to take her out of her comfort zone. She may never get back into that comfort zone again. Megan O'Hara Sullivan, good morning and welcome. Lovely to have a chat to you this morning.
Thank you, David. It's lovely to be here.
Now, you're about to head off on a pretty epic adventure, trekking to the hallowed Everest Base Camp and doing it to help raise funds for Momentum Health here in Toowoomba. How did you get involved in this adventure?
Well, I'm going to blame Chris Black, who's the chair of the Momentum Mental Health Board. He sowed a seed, I think, one time when I ran into him at a function and told me about this adventure and that there was 20 people from Toowoomba going. But more importantly, he said it's to raise funds for Momentum Mental Health. And he said that what's changed at Momentum is that people don't need to have a diagnosis to be able to access the services. So previously you had to have a mental health diagnosis to go there. And I said, well, what exactly is Momentum Health? What does it do? And he said, well, it's for anyone who wants to work on their mental health from any type of conditions. And, a lot of people just don't know where to start. There's a lot of stigma around mental health and they don't know, are they supposed to see their GP? They don't know whether I'm supposed to see a psychologist. How do I even do that?
Yeah,
and it's this kind of gateway. And then he said to me, maybe if you come on board, then, not only will it be a sort of a personal thing for you, but it'll help raise money for Momentum Mental Health. And I just thought, all right,
fantastic.
I can do that.
Yeah. Was it one of those things where you say yes and then think about, wow, this is actually a big deal? I mean, physically it's a big deal because have you always been an athletic person, never met a hiking path you couldn't tame, or is this bold new territory for you?
Yeah, well, my get out of jail free card is we've been doing some training and this group of people, I think that was the other thing when I agreed to go on. I met some of the other people who have signed up and I was initially a bit skeptical about whether it'd be young people sitting around on their phones all the time and sort of racing up the side of the mountain. And, I'm 58 years old. Like I'm nearly 30 years older than some of the people who are doing it. And I thought, but I met some of the people and we went on a training and just the conversation about, so some people have been clients of Momentum Mental Health up to Chris, who's the chairman of the board, and everyone in between. And it was just a really great dynamic. And I think the thing that sort of, when I knew that it was going to be okay, was when we did that walk and we all just had this sense of adventure. And but anyway, I digress. My get out of jail free card was that they say you can't really train for it. And when I heard that, my ears pricked up. They said it's really how your body handles altitude.
Yes,
so I thought, well, I might not need to be the fittest person, but somehow or other. So I've been doing a lot of swimming to try and increase my lung capacity.
Okay.
I wouldn't say a lot of swimming. I'd say a bit of swimming.
A bit of swimming as opposed to not swimming at all beforehand.
That's one.
But that is the big thing about it, isn't it? I remember talking to Chris Black about 6 months ago about it when I think the whole thing was first launched, and he said it is more about altitude. I mean, it's a pretty tough climb, but altitude sickness is the thing that you wrestle with, and that's why they take it relatively slowly. It's something like 5 days to get up there, but only 2 days to come back.
There's all lots of acclimatisation compartments of it. So you might only trek, 9 Ks, but that takes you the 6 hours or whatever, and then the rest of the time is the acclimatisation. But I do things a bit like, sign up, yep, it'll be okay, and then find out the details later. And I was talking to Chris the other day, and he said, oh, well, there's, the suspension bridges, and then there's the, all the beautiful walking and staying in the tea houses. And don't forget, there's the swimming in the glacier. And I said, oh, I didn't see anything about bringing your togs in the equipment list.
Yeah, that wasn't on the brochure.
And then he said, those countries, they don't use togs. It's all just going nude. And that was the point where I thought, no, I'm not doing this. I've signed up for something that I cannot. You talk about mental health. Yeah, that's
that's right. That's
their mental health. I'm saying, yeah.
So that's a no-brainer for you. So you'll be the only fully clothed one.
And he said, no, I was only joking. I said, I'm a gullible person. Don't do this to me.
So am I. Well, I don't know anything about the Himalayan culture. I just fell straight into it. But the temperature itself, whether you're clothed or not, would be a little bit formidable. So there's going to be quite a few firsts, I would imagine, for you on this trip.
And I do, when you sign up for things like this, you think, maybe I'm going to discover something about myself that, I didn't know. I'm going to have some sort of epiphany about whatever, whereas in reality, I think I know myself well enough. It'll probably be, day one, it'll be raining, I'll be really cold, I'll be really hungry, and I hate this, I want to go home. But I think there's something about challenging yourself and sticking it out, and
absolutely,
as well as the bonds with other people, but most importantly, raising the profile for Momentum Mental Health.
Indeed. And tell me, I have to say, when I mentioned in the staff meeting yesterday, talking about tomorrow's stories, I said I was going to have a chat to you, and you were doing this trek to Everest Base Camp, and you might have gotten a bit of this as well. A few people said, well, it's not climbing Everest, is it? It's only climbing to the base camp. Isn't that a bit like staying in the car park instead of going inside or something? But it's even with take the altitude away, it's still not the easiest walk itself either. So it is still definitely going to be challenging on a number of levels.
Well, David, how I want to answer that is you give me the names of those people, because we've got one spot left, and I will give them a call and seeing whether staying in the car park is the right analogy for climbing to Everest Base Camp. Well, when Chris first told me about it, I said, well, I'll be that person who just leaves out the base camp word. I climbed Everest.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of a stretch on the tree.
I made it to Everest Base Camp. It flows off the edge, just falls off the edge.
I don't think... I think it'll be great. I think base camp or not, I think just experiencing the culture, even going to Kathmandu and all of the rest. I'm a bit terrified about the record with that plane crash there recently.
Well, I wasn't going to bring it up since you've mentioned the elephant in the room. Apparently, one of the most spectacular thrills you get is actually hopping out of the plane when you've landed successfully at, is it Laka Airport? It's quite a thrill there. So
yeah, well, that's I think that's at about 2,800 metres above sea level, and where we're going to is 5,500 metres above sea level, and that's the goal of our fundraising. So each person is requested to raise $5,500, and that's because it's 5,500 metres above sea level. That's where that figure comes from.
Fantastic. So the fundraising, I guess, is another challenge itself. How's that going so far, and how can people help out?
Well, I really request that they jump on my site rather than any of the other people's site. It's not a competition, but it is a competition.
No, that's right. We spoke to Chris 6 months ago, but that's done now. We've forgotten about that.
It is
Support
always
Megan.
hard. It is always hard to ask your family and friends and strangers, I guess, to donate. But they're not donating to me. They're donating for services at Momentum Mental Health. So it's providing coaching for people to work on their mental health. That's what it's going towards. It's going towards a staff member, which will hopefully be employed for a year. So since they've opened up their facility for anyone to come, that requires money. And so if you just jump on Momentum Mental Health Everest Base Camp, Megan O'Hara Sullivan, you will find, or donate to anyone. It's all going to the same cause. But yeah, I mean, any amount of money would be wonderful. I think everyone at the moment is struggling, whether it's the cost of living pressures, but particularly here in Toowoomba, like local government, as a councillor, we don't deal with mental health as at a direct level, but this is my way of knowing or recognising that the community's hurting. I know that the community's hurting. Housing, cost of living, and post-pandemic. Those services are greatly needed.